ver644. Can you believe it? 2015-2016. This is a sample file. This has data from last year that I've put into this year's version, so you'll see data in the future, and the reason why is because I've taken the data from last year and put it in here. There are many parts of TPS. This is an overview, and we're not going to get into anything too deep. And what I mean by deep is you can see these tabs, and for those who are not familiar with Excel, which is what this is developed using, these are called tabs, and if I click on this arrow over here, you can see the tabs go all the way out to the right, and everything here is important, just not everything is important every day. So the most important things I've put on the left side so that they're more convenient for you. I want to go through the tabs just to give you an idea of what's going on. We're not going to go through all of them, so I'm not going to go to the right past this E1 here, but I want to go over what these tabs do, just so when I refer to them, it won't be the first time you hear them. So TOC is table of contents. If you click on that, it tells you what each of the tabs do. Pretty brief summary of what they do, but if you forget, you can take a look there. Nothing is clickable here. It won't do anything. It won't take you there. It just lists it. Data entry is where, well, of course, as the name suggests, that's where you're going to enter your data. There are lots of places that look like data entry, like our data sheets here, data sheet 1 and data sheet 2. It looks similar, but you can't enter data here. This is for printing purposes only. We'll get back to that, but I just wanted to show you when you're entering your data, it's going to be entered on this tab only. Okay? Setup is where you can list your 10 academic blocks, the teacher's name, and then we have a place for an additional evaluation name. It's a place where you can put data that are outside of the kind of data that are collected by TPS, which is to say TPS collects a 0, 1, 2, or 3 as rating data, but you may want to put something else. So let's say we were going to put academic evaluation. This way you can put any kind of number you want in that additional evaluation column, and when I click on data entry, you can see that now this gray column is academic evaluation, and in this column you can put any number you want. In these other columns here, you have to use TPS rating data, which is 0, 1, 2, or 3, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. Okay, going back to setup, this stuff here, these levels and these codes, this is for classroom management, and I'm not going to go into it now. It does some really cool things, but it's for more advanced users. But I just want you to know what it is. It allows you to add way to go points, which are percentage points that will add to the weekly summaries of things, weekly summaries of the students' increasing and decreasing target behaviors. And in fractions, detract, they subtract, their penalty percentage points. And then you can establish some different levels. In this case, 80% or above is an A. And I will show you where that works and how it works a little bit later, but I just want to point it out. We're not going to spend a lot of time in this overview, but I wanted you to know what it is. Setup 2 is an important area because that's where you're going to install your increasing and decreasing behaviors for each student and the student's name. You'll note student 1, student 2, student 3. It goes out to the right to 24. You have 24 students that you can put into one TPS file, and if you have more than 24 students, which I know as a teacher you would not, but if you were a behavior specialist and you were tracking more than 24 students, you just create a second file and then you have another 24, and that works pretty well. So we have increasing behaviors and decreasing behaviors for each student. Here's Pete Moss's increasing behaviors: quality of work, quantity of work, independence. Decreasing behaviors: verbal aggression and classroom disruption, physical aggression, refusal, transition problems. For Coriander, following directions is something they're working on, and they're also having a measure of work. And then we have a different kind of distinction: physical aggression to others verbal aggression, physical aggression to property, physical aggression to self. There are 4 possible increasing and 4 possible decreasing behaviors. You don't need to use all 4. In fact I recommend is you try to keep it to 2 or 3 increasing behaviors and 2 or 3 decreasing behaviors to give yourself some room to grow. We don't need to put all 4 increasing and decreasing behaviors on the first of the year unless there was some really important reason for doing it. I'm not saying not to, I'm just saying see if you can do it with 3. It gives you a little bit of room to grow. Phyllis Glass, appropriate social exchange, following directions, verbal aggression. Many of the kids that children that we are tracking interventions for tend to have verbal aggression and physical aggression, so that's why it's a common thing here. Here we have leaves area. We also have the work quality for X cars. And so you just type the name in, you type the goals, increasing behaviors and the decreasing behaviors, and you're ready to rock and roll with that. So that's all you have to do. And if you move to the right here using this slider or click on the arrow, it keeps moving to 8 and to 9 and so forth. So you can slide it or you can click on it. That's the setup too. You're definitely going to want to spend some time there. These are 2 home notes. One of them is I'm going to scroll up to the top where I have some data. You put the date of the home note, and what that's going to do is to give you a really great home note. And it shows here gray blocks are not available because you've entered an X or an N in your data entry, and I'll explain that to you in a little bit. White cells meaning no data at all. They were blanks for your data entry. And if you had entered a 2 for quantity of work, 2 checks appear. If you enter a 3 for independence during social studies, 3 checks will appear. If you entered a 0, then a 0 appears. And we'll go back to data entry for just a moment. These numbers indicate the kind of checks and, going back to it, or X's. So in fact, let's see what we got here. I'm doing a little dancing here, sorry about that. Let's go to Pete Moss for A25, and you can see what numbers we have here. When we go to the home note and I put in A25, you can see that he got a 0 for arrival for quantity of work and a 2 for breakfast for quantity of work, and that's exactly what we have here. The home note also will display the notes that you've put in for the day, and that's a really handy thing to be able to do, is inform the parent what you had to say about their behavior, child's behavior during each of these academic blocks. The home note week is same thing with checks and X's and also zeros when nothing happened for a week. And I know you're not going to be able to read this, but let's take a look at what it would look like if we were to print it. And this is what it would look like. Okay, so it's a week at a glance. This is the first day of school. We didn't collect any data, so that's why it's blank. Okay, and when you use that, you want to put the Monday of the school week that you want to report. Even if there was no school on that day, you would put the Monday, because there is a 5-day template here that's going to be used. This is really nice to send home on the end of the week or on Monday after you've entered data for Friday. DS1 and DS2 are 2 different kinds of data sheets. This is a data sheet. I'm going to go ahead and print that again. A data sheet that is going to be printed so that you can have something on your desk 5 days with, in this case, it's Pete, and here are your increasing targets and here are your decreasing targets. So this makes it very easy to collect data throughout the day on students in your class. And you can also write some notes. And you'll note that Pete's goals are right here, which are different than Corey's goals. And once a week, perhaps, maybe on Tuesday, or Wednesday, you're going to write in some academic performance here. Maybe during social studies or science, you had a test and he got 83%. Then when you go back to actually enter the data, I'm just going to use this day right here, you would put, let's say 83%. You wouldn't put the percent, you just put 83. And that way, it gives you a way to track performance. Now, it is going to total this right here. If you're doing academic evaluation, that number is not important. But if you are going to be using this for classroom management purposes, let's go back to setup and just say stars earned or something like that. Of course, maybe he wouldn't have earned 83 stars for the day, but maybe he earned 3 stars. And maybe during math he earned another 5 stars. So this gives you a total for the day if the total is relevant. Okay. Then we have the G1, the G2, and the G3. Those are displaying percentages of rating points earned. And I want to explain that a little bit. What we have here is a situation where you can enter a 1, a 2, or a 3 for the amount of behavior that occurs. Is it a low, a medium, or a high amount? So for quality of work, during social studies, Pete earned a 3, meaning he had a high quality of work, he had a high quantity of work, and he did the work independently. Well, what about during specials? Well, he had a medium quality of work. Let's make that just a little bigger. He had a medium quality of work. He had a low quantity of work and had a medium of independence. We put X's here because we're not going to be using those columns. And during math, he had a low quality, low quantity, and low independence. Okay, and as we scroll down, we can see those numbers are going to change based on each day's events. Let's look at the decreasing side. He had a high amount of verbal aggression during arrival. During breakfast, a high amount of verbal aggression. During social studies, he had no verbal aggression, so we put the 0. So this is a good point. 3 doesn't mean good or bad. 3 means amount, how much, or how intense. So what we want are all 3s on this side, and we want all 0s on this side. That's the goal. And on the given day, it is summarized on the bottom here. And for quality of work, for 825, Pete earned 67% of the available points. That is, he could have earned a 3 here, here, and here. These other cells were not available. They're X'd out either because we're not going to use them on a daily basis, or we put in an N because he was sent home early. So those cells were not used. We want to have something in all of the cells. Blank cells are ignored. Okay, we could have left these cells blank right here. All of these N's could have been left blank, and that would have been fine, especially because you put the note. The problem is sometimes when we see blank cells, we don't know if you forgot to collect data or you forgot to enter data. And because we don't know which one occurred, we say let's fill in all the cells with something. It'd either be a 0, 1, 2, 3, X if it's going to be repetitively out of the running, like we're not looking at work or independence skills during lunch, although he could be bad, so we don't put X's over here. And we can put N's for those cells that on that particular day are not going to be used. The thing about an X is that if you put an X once, I'm just going to go to a fresh student right here. His goals are not entered. But if we put an X there, what's going to happen is it's going to take that cell out of the running for measurement, and it's going to continue to take that cell out. So you don't have to keep taking out a cell that's not going to be used. Once you put an X, it continues until you decide that you do want to record it, and then you delete it, and then all the cells before continue with the X, all the cells forward are again blank. The N is used when a cell is not going to be used for a particular day for some reason, like if the student came late. That was only on that particular day, so we would put ends over there. So it tells us why. Okay. Now I want to illustrate a new feature that's really nice. I'm going to go up to the top here. Now you'll note for Pete we've got 3 increasing targets and 4 decreasing targets. Well, if you have to enter something in every one of these cells, that's a lot of entry, right? You've got 3 times 10, that's 30 entries, and you've got 4 times 10, which is 40. So each day for Pete, you have to enter 40 plus 30 or 70 entries. That's a lot of entries for each student. Let's say you had 10 students, now you've got 700 entries, which is a tremendous amount of data entry. TPS has always got a keen eye towards efficiency. So what we've got is this yellow block right here. And look what happens if I put a P in there for perfect day. Voila! It enters all 3s for your increasing targets and all 0s for your decreasing targets. And then what you can do is say, oh yeah, there was a 1 there, and there was maybe a 2 there, and we had some problems there, and maybe over there, and maybe over there, and then you're done. If that is, what happened on that given day. So you then manage by exception. You can enter the data indirectly if you wish, but that certainly is a lot less work to put the P for a perfect day and then put in the ways that the child was not perfect. That has helped to decrease. That has decreased the amount of effort to record so many increasing and decreasing behaviors. Now, on a given day, you still have to enter the biases or the exceptions from the perfect day for each student. And the question is, do you enter them live into the computer, like right here, or do you print this data sheet? I like the idea of printing a data sheet because it gives you a hard copy. Now there's a data sheet too, which we didn't go over, but I'm going to go over right now. That is 1 student for each day, 5 students per page. So go back here, we have 1 student for 5 days, okay, Monday through Friday. DS2 is 1 student for 1 day. When you go to print this, it'll be 1 page with 5 students, and so it lists each of the, well, we only have 4 students in the sample database here, and it lists their goals. Now you'll note that those who are familiar with TPS will note that this type here has been made a lot larger, and it runs off the page. Well, it does that for a reason. These goals can get a little bit longer than is comfortable to fit in this space. So what I did was I made the type larger so that teachers can easily see what the goal is, and pretty much what's going on with the first 12 letters of that goal. And if you need to check, you certainly can have another sheet of paper that lists the more complete goal. But when this gets printed, the type won't be so small, and you can actually read this, not here, but when you print it out, you can read it very easily. If we had to put the full goal in that little space right there, which we have in prior versions, it gets too small. Okay, so that was DS2. G1, which is now going into data analysis, this is going to be, and I'm not going to go into this in any great depth, this is your daily percentage of your increasing target behaviors, and we don't have the 4th increasing target, so that's blank, and here are the decreasing target behaviors. This is a daily percentage of rating points earned. We want the red to be on the bottom on 0s, and we want the greens to be high at 100%. Okay, and that's what it says here on the side. Increasing goal is 100%, decreasing goal is 0%. G2 looks at those percentages on a weekly basis. So let's explain what these dot and line graphs are. The dot is the percentage for the week. The top of the bar is the maximum it could be, given that the student earned 3s in all available cells, and the bottom is if the student earned 1s for all available cells. So this is the usable range. Cells that are blank are ignored from this. So we want to see the tops of the bar be high, that means that the student received measures in a higher percentage of available blocks. If the student received any zeros, this top drops down. A little bit more detail than you need to know right now, but the idea is for the increasing target, we want the top of the bar to be high and we want the dot to be at the top of the bar. Okay? The decreasing target, we want the dot to be on the bottom of the bar and we want that bottom of the bar to be low. So something along the lines like this. This is what we're after. And as before, this is the usable range. So this would be if the student got all threes for verbal aggression in cells that were available for recording. This would be if the student got all ones. So what we want to see is this dot drop down to the bottom of the graph, and we want this bar to be very short. In this case, the student had a lot of academic blocks with verbal aggression, and his verbal aggression was very high. So where the dot is on the bar is very important. On G3, we're looking at the analysis by months and by quarters. Okay, and the table here is displaying the percentage of points that were earned and the percentage of academic blocks where the target behavior occurred. This is not as important for increasing targets. We're looking more on the rating percentage. We want that to be approaching 100. This is the average for the year. On the decreasing side, we want to see zeros, and we want to see them on both the rating and the occurrence. So we want the percentage of rating points to be low, and you can see it actually did drop off nicely, although it picked up a little bit in January. And we want this occurrence. Occurrence is the percentage of the academic blocks in which the target behavior occurred. So that means for the month of August, 59% of the academic blocks that were recorded had some kind of verbal aggression in it. This tells us the intensity of the verbal aggression. The rating, if the student earns all threes, the rating will be 100%. So this is the percentage of occurrence. This is the percentage of points earned. And we have it for all of our academic blocks. Here is, again, that kind of dot and stick kind of graph. And what we're seeing here is the refusal is steadily going down, and so is the maximum potential score based on when the student is exhibiting that behavior. And that a fuller explanation of what that means would be for the more advanced class. Academic block, AB, that's a fun graph. That's going to show us how these percentages divvy up among the academic blocks. We can see that specials for this particular student is a problem for transition as well as by refusal. And this is a really handy graph. And there are actually 4 different varieties of this, which I'm not going to go into right now. The top one, which I'm scrolling a little fast, I know. This one is simply how many academic blocks did we see the target behavior. Now you'll note to the right, it's on all of the graphs, but I'm just going to point it out here. We can look at different graphs simply by clicking on the student's name here. And so now we have Coriander, we can look at Phyllis's data, and so forth. And we can analyze a particular time frame. Normally I just leave this in the beginning and end of the school year, and that way it takes all the data. But if there was going to be some important change and we wanted to look at how our intervention strategy affected behavior, we can analyze a certain time frame. Just remember that these dates have to be school dates. Okay, if you put in a non-school date, it will cause all this to go blank because it doesn't have that date in its database. D1 is the last graph that I'm going to go over for today's overview. This is a really great display. And what we have here is a count of incidents. So that tells me how many times was Phyllis evaluated with a 3 for appropriate social exchange. How many times was she evaluated as high for following directions? How many times for medium? well, was she evaluated as a medium, and how many times was she evaluated as low, as well as a 0. And then we have all sorts of other analyses that go on. We can sum it across the different target behaviors. We can also look at it in terms of the percentage of each of those ratings. In other words, 71.9% of all ratings were high for appropriate social exchange. And again, we can click on our other students and we can get different kinds of data. And this tells us that there are 72 days of data for Pete, and this is a total number of incidents. We can make this a little larger. Total incidents and average per day. More important for the decreasing targets. So across these 4 decreasing targets, so far we have a total of 177 academic blocks where something occurred. We're not including zeros in this calculation. And the total of 823 academic blocks where some kind of inappropriate behavior occurred. Of course, you can have an inappropriate behavior of 4 different kinds occur, and you can have multiple occurrences during an academic block. In other words, Pete could have had refusal and physical aggression. So you can kind of double dip on that. But here you have it individualized if you want to look at it that way, or as a total for the day. There's a lot more about this that we can talk about. This is a great way to look at just the level of need of a particular student. I'm going to show you one more thing that's new for this year. This is the IEP, and what this does now is it takes the data. I'm going to click on G3. It takes the data from G3 up here. It takes this information and it funnels it directly into the IEP. So it takes Pete's increasing target behaviors 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so forth, and it generates an IEP goal based on the G3 data. And what we can do is change this percentage. So what we want to do is increase for the annual IEP goal Pete's increase in target behavior 1, which is what is listed here, quality of work. We want to increase by 20%. And then what TPS does is it gives you 3 intermediate objectives so that you have all of your IEP goals written based on the data collection that you're actually going to use. It's a wonderful concept. All right, and so in the green boxes, those are your increasing targets. If we scroll down, you'll see the red targets are decreasing targets, and it does the same kind of calculation. The blue box is if you wanted to enter a particular recording area, recording block for that goal. In other words, let's say you were going to only record it, the rating points for quality of work during science. And so you just type science there. And now what's going to happen is it adds the words during science. It leaves the other goals without that change. So you can individualize these as much as you want, and you can type in, math, reading, etc., and it will put that in for you. Of course, I left that extra comma there, so we would get rid of that. And that way the comma is going to be appropriate. So during science, math, and reading, Pete Mosswell, and so forth. And again, you can click on any of your students' data right here. Names, I mean. And it will use their increasing target behaviors. Sometimes they're the same. But then what you can do is if you want to copy it, you just click on that. It will copy just the relevant section, and then you can paste it into a Word document if you wanted to change the text, and that's a really nice thing to be able to do. Okay, well, there's so much more to this, but this is an overview, right? So we're not going to get into anything in too much detail. What's important? Let's review. What's important is to give yourself some increasing and decreasing target behaviors that are going to be relevant to the student's intervention. There certainly are some commonalities among students, but we want them to be goals that are observable, and we don't want them to be opposites like does schoolwork, doesn't do schoolwork. We don't want to do that kind of thing. Keep in mind that if you have a cell that's not going to be used on a routine basis, you can put an X in that and it will take it out of the running. If you're not going to use it for a particular day, put an N in there. Use the P if you want to enter data on a perfect day. And I was going to point out, I'm just going to go to an unused cell down here. For P, when we enter the P, you'll note that it keeps the X's where they are and it fills in 3's and 0's for the perfect day without obliterating the X's. And okay, well, let's put a bookmark in this. I'm going to be doing some other trainings, and we're going to be going over some of these other things here. The most important thing I want you to agree with is that this has tremendous power, is tremendously efficient. It does not require you to count using tallies or anything like that. It just asks you to rate using a rating system of each of the increasing and decreasing target behaviors. One number, you put it down there, and it's good for evaluating the performance of that behavior during that academic block. And if you can just give me those numbers for each academic block and with each target behavior, you get so much in return. You'll get to know exactly what's going on. You get to monitor your interventions, and anyone who looks at these graphs are going to be very pleased with the work that you've done. Okay, well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Lewis Weber. It's been a pleasure to provide this overview of TPS, and I look forward to having the opportunity to consult with you on cases in which you are collecting TPS data.